I am graciously grateful to see each and every one of you. Welcome, welcome. Welcome back to my channel, The Savvy Agent. Today I'm so excited to talk about a topic that is central to raising confident, strong children who know how to make wise decisions. Our topic is balancing discipline and grace, parenting with love and boundaries. Whoa, parenting with love and boundaries. Remember, our children, they are imitators of who we are. We have to understand our own behaviors and our own actions and how we respond in our parenting with discipline and love. We need to understand where our own actions and behaviors and why we respond certain ways, where that all comes from. And generally, it comes from something that you experienced in your own childhood from your own parents. So take that into consideration and into account when you start holding your children accountable and providing them with discipline. I've written a lot about this in my book, Parenting with Purpose, which is all about developing your children's character through faith. Today, I want to take you on a journey of how we can discipline our children by showing them the grace that reflects God's love. Parenting with love and boundaries is the heart of nurturing children who will grow into adults who honor God in their lives. Let me tell you, again, raising 6 children, it is a balancing act. And it has a lot to do with repetition and consistency and how you choose to handle each and every one of your children. And there are many, many lessons to teach through parenting with grace and love and establishing boundaries. Discipline is a big part of parenting, isn't it? It's not just about correcting behavior, but teaching values. In Proverbs 13:24, it says, "Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them." Now, people have used that context of scripture for justifying a means to an end of different behaviors. May not be okay in parenting. They used to be acceptable, but not too much anymore. I come from a generation, again, my parents were a little bit, children are meant to be seen and not heard. And so the parenting style was much more authoritative and punitive. And we've evolved. Parenting as a course of study and evidence-based research and the psychology of parenting has longevity and truths in child development, brain development, and the whole nature versus nurture environment, and how that affects a child and how they develop. So discipline is love in action. It's about giving our children the structure they need to grow. Without it, they won't understand the difference between right and wrong. And they may struggle to set boundaries for themselves. Through discipline, you're teaching your children how to be self-disciplined as well. We only know what we know. You don't know what you don't know. So you are only as good of a parent as what you know. It's always important to grow, change, and learn. Gather as much information and insight as you can, especially the different ages and stages of child development and how their thoughts evolve. Discipline must always come from a place of love, not anger or frustration. In Hebrews 12:11, we are reminded that no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Our goal is to raise children who bear this harvest in righteousness and peace. And let me tell you, keeping some kind of order in a household of six children, okay? Household of 7 individuals with different activities, academics, relationships with one another. That is very challenging, extremely challenging. And I learned a lot. I'm graciously grateful for all the experiences. I'm graciously grateful to have all of my children and to have the relationships that I have with them in their adulthood. However, going through it is challenging because you don't know what you don't know. And it's difficult to gauge whether you're doing the right thing. So one of the things that I learned, and I often heard society say, different people in society, well, they don't give us a manual. Well, you know what? Yes, we do have a manual. It's the Bible. And the Bible teaches us a lot about child rearing and about child development and how to interact with our children to teach them and to establish character and values. I am speaking from personal experience in raising my children and in things that I've done in my life and staying close to God through the decision-making process and through all those years of growth, change, development, and instilling that character in my children. And let me tell you, staying consistent was key and fundamental, and continually pointing my eyes up to the good Lord Jesus Christ. But with that, establishing boundaries and parenting boundaries, but also boundaries within the children and having them learn boundaries too with one another. Through grace and forgiveness and teaching them how to interact with one another with grace and forgiveness was extremely important as well. And then the discipline aspect. What works with one child doesn't work with the other. So disciplining each child differently, that was a challenge in and of itself as well. And then the backlash. Well, why didn't he get this or that? When they did something like this, or why didn't they get punished like this? You didn't me. Well, there's always backlash in comparison. So that too was challenging, and to teach my children that each one of them are different creatures in the good Lord, and they're all wired differently. And now you can't teach what works for one doesn't work for the other, but there are ways to establish some kind of cohesiveness and foundation within the context of your family, so that there does become some kind of a level of understanding of one another, and it works. Prayer, lots of prayer, supplication, and also grace. Let me tell you, some of those punishments and discipline that I had to take with my children and the hard line that I had to stand was very, very difficult. But I did it. My husband and I did it. And the kids are better for it. And they are able to be responsible individuals. They have discipline themselves to accomplish their goals and can see when they have to say no to things so that they can move forward in life and work towards their purpose and what God has for them. Now let's talk about grace. Grace is so important because as parents, we know that no one is perfect, neither we nor our children. Grace reflects the way God loves us, unconditionally, forgiving, and patient. One of the best Bible stories of grace and parenting is in Luke 15:11 through 32. The story of the prodigal son. When the son returned after squandering his inheritance, his father welcomed him back with open arms. To forgive that big, that's huge. And I've had to do that. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. In our parenting, grace means understanding that our children will make mistakes, just like we do. When they do, we have to be ready to offer love, support, and guidance back to the right path. Discipline gives them boundaries, but grace gives them room to learn. I remember, I love my parents. I have great parents. I have wonderful parents. I've had a wonderful life with my parents. I'm very graciously grateful for the opportunities that were presented before me and given to me from my parents. However, one of the things, and I know why I stay so close to God, because I needed a godly example of grace, love, and forgiveness, and also forgetfulness. Because one of the things we want to do is, when we're giving grace to our child about a mistake or something that happened or they did, or a decision that they made, when we're offering them that grace, we're also giving them permission to learn, to grow in faith and grow in strength and grow in confidence. But also, we don't want to remind them continuously of this time that they did this, or this time that they did that. We don't want to hold an account for all the wrongdoings. Excuse me. Yeah, we don't want to hold an account for all the wrongdoings, because then our focus is not on growth and development. Our focus is on mistakes and punishment. It's going to be good. Discipline gives them boundaries. Grace gives them room to learn. So, finding balance, love, and boundaries. The key to effective parenting is finding the balance between discipline and grace, between love and boundaries. Too much discipline without grace can make children feel stifled, but too much grace without discipline can leave them lost without direction. So it's a constant balance. And again, it's a strong prayer life, strong faith walk that you must have as a parent to find that balance and stay focused on raising godly children. Now, that is one of the things that I always focused on, and I was graciously grateful to have in my life, was to understand the fact that God gives us children as gifts, and these gifts that God gives us, these children, we are to guide them in His way, and ultimately, and point their eyes up to Him, and teach them how to have a relationship with God, because they are only with us for a very short period of time. 18 years goes by very quickly. And let me tell you, when they hit those teenage years after 15, 16, they are making independent decisions, sometimes without you, without your knowledge, and without your understanding, and without your knowing. So laying these foundations at a very young age is extremely important, especially during the ages of 0 through 7. Teaching them to point their eyes up and have a faith-filled life with God through those ages, and especially modeling grace, love, forgiveness, boundaries, discipline consistently. As Ephesians 6:4 instructs us, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. This verse emphasizes how we can guide our children with wisdom and love without being harsh or overbearing. In my experience raising these 6 children, I learned that the structure we give them through boundaries creates a sense of security. While grace allows them to flourish within those boundaries, that's why it is so important to combine the two in our daily parenting. You know, when your teens are in high school and they act like they don't want you part of their life and they don't want you involved in what they're talking about, or the decisions that they're talking about, or the decisions that they're making, or people that they're hanging around, right? This is where you have established curfews. This is where you have established different rules and household rules, and how when the consistency really comes into play with parenting. Because although your teens do not want you that involved in their life, they do appreciate when you set these boundaries into place. Because I'm going to tell you what it does. If I set a curfew for my child for 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and there's something going on the weekend on a Friday night, with that boundary in place, they cannot be led astray into the bad decision making. And what I mean by that is more alcohol abuse, drug abuse, sexually active children, young adults. You know, when you have that established boundary in place and you set that into motion at a young age, in their teen years, although they will fight you with regards to these curfews and these rules that you've established, they're also grateful because that gives them an out with their friends. And now they don't look like the person that doesn't want to participate. They look like they have strict parents, you know, and then they aren't ousted in their school relationships because now they just say, oh, yeah, my mom or dad. Oh, yeah, my parents. Oh, yeah, they won't let me. So you give your teens an out. Even after 16, you know, with a car, establishing rules and boundaries with that, with grace, is extremely important because you're also teaching them responsibility with that vehicle because driving is a privilege. It is a privilege. And to learn how to deal with that kind of responsibility of having other people's lives in their hands when they sit behind the wheel of a car is extremely important because they do not have the cognitive ability to realize that. So again, this is strong parenting that you've established through the years. You've set boundaries in place. You've set curfews in place. And now they are taking ownership and responsibility for their own decision making, but still you have some teaching moments there. And showing them and establishing that, no, you can't take the car. No, you cannot have the car because this is not okay. You know, we do not get behind the wheel of a car intoxicated. We do not get behind the wheel of a car with any kind of substances in our body. So that is where the consistency of parenting comes into play with these boundaries and grace, especially into the young adulthood, teen years and young adulthoods. Now, if you think you're going to establish these rules and what you want in their teen years, after you have not laid that foundation when they were younger, it's not going to happen. You're going to get more rebellion. So in order to be consistent, you have to start young. You have to lay these foundations and boundaries in there when they're young. Because as they grow older and they are faced with these different peer issues and rebellious teens and rebellious friends, they are more apt to stay close to you and to listen to you and to abide by your household rules because those rules have always been consistent and they've been done with love and grace. So how do we strike that balance? Here are some practical tips for balancing discipline and grace, all of which I expand on in my book, Parenting with Purpose. Consistency and discipline. Be consistent with rules you set. This helps your child understand expectations clearly. When they know the boundaries, they feel safe and respected. Lead by example. Our children watch us closely. If we want them to be respectful, patient, and kind, we have to model those behaviors ourselves. Yes, we do. Jesus said in Matthew 7:12, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. Show empathy. When disciplining, acknowledge your child's feelings. Let them know that their emotions are valid, but also explain why certain behaviors are unacceptable. This helps children feel understood while learning valuable lessons. Forgiveness and second chances. Just as God gives us second chances, we should be ready to forgive our children when they fall short. Let them know that they are loved despite their mistakes, just as we are loved by God. Encouraging faith and character development. Parenting is not for the weak. It is intentional. It is extremely intentional. Extremely intentional. At the heart of discipline and grace is faith. The values we instill in our children, their sense of integrity, kindness, and respect, are built in the foundation of their faith. When we teach them to love God and follow His commandments, we're giving them the tools they need to navigate life with confidence. In Deuteronomy 6:6-7, it says, "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." It's our role to guide our children in faith so they can build their lives on a strong, unshakable foundation. Again, I am graciously grateful for all the opportunities that God has presented to me. I'm graciously grateful for my parenting and having all of my children, realizing that each one of them are a gift from the good Lord. They were never my possessions. They were never mine to begin with. And it was always putting God first and teaching them how to follow Him and having their eyes pointed up to a higher calling. I hope today's talk has given you some insight into how we can balance discipline and grace in our parenting journey. If you want to learn more about how to foster character development and raise strong, faithful children, I encourage you to check out my book, Parenting with Purpose. Click on the link in the description below to order your copy and start transforming your parenting journey today. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful day by the beach. If you found today's video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with other parents who are looking for guidance in raising their children. Remember to click on the bell for notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Together we can raise a generation of children who know how to balance discipline and grace, all while walking in faith. See you in the next video. Be blessed, stay safe, lead with grace and love.